Hey YouTube, this is Jaden from Shadow Strike coming at you with another video. Um, and like I said in a previous video, I was going to give you, because I just posted a video that was, in my opinion, and I'm pretty sure my teammates would agree with me, that I posted the top 10 clans right now. And gave you a little reason why each one I thought was the top 10, and now I'm going to give you the top 10 cheapest deck ideas. And because I know there are some players that want to play the game but just not spend a lot of money, so I'm doing this. So if you need a few ideas for cheap decks, here's a few. But anyway, let's get right to it. And you'll also find that some of these clans are also in my top 10 clans. One, Royal Paladin. I think Royal Paladin, you can build a cheap deck. I mean, obviously, I wouldn't say the Majesty Lord Blaster deck is cheap. But there have been some Alfred decks that I've seen, because Alfred runs about $12 to $15. So you can get him. And also the Galahad Ride Chain is pretty cheap. So those are two cheap deck ideas. Gold Paladin. Gold Paladin, the cheapest deck to build would be a Garmor deck. It is playable by himself as a main Vanguard. You can mix Lop-Ear shooters with him to get extra pieces off, and you can play Gigatech Destroyers to get extra power on the rear. I mean, excuse me. I think Garmor, you could make a Garmor deck that would work just fine and be a good cheap deck. I think Narukami for number 3 is also a good one. Thunderbreak Dragon is kind of like Garmor. It's a good cheap deck. You can get four Thunderbreaks and make a good deck around it. Find a good rear guard to throw in there, and I mean, I don't think Dragonic Kaiser Vermilion would be a very good cheap deck, which is the number 1 Narukami deck, but I do think you could build a cheap Narukami deck around Thunderbreak. Oracle Think Tank. Oracle Think Tank, the Sakuya trial deck that came out, I think you can make a pretty good, relatively cheap deck out of that, because Sakuya is a pretty good card, and there were some good cards that came in the trial deck, and there are some relatively good, cheaper Oracle Think Tank units you can use for the deck. So I think that is definitely an option for you, or for players like that. Nova Grappler. I think Nova Grappler with Gold Rutile could make a pretty good deck. I don't know how much Ashura Kaiser is going for right now, but there's an idea. I don't know how much Azure Dragon is going for either. You can make a deck out of that. So, I mean, obviously the two most expensive decks of Nova Grappler are the Razor deck and the Blaukruger deck. But if you wanted to go cheap, I would go Gold Rutile or Azure Dragon or Ashura Kaiser, depending on how much both those two are. But Gold Rutile, I know for a fact you could build a deck around him and he'd be relatively cheap. The Great Nature deck. The Great Nature Clan. The Great Nature Clan is a cheaper clan, but I think it's also a very good clan. The main two decks you see are the Lox build and the Leopold deck. Both of which are cheaper and I think are very good, so those are definitely options. Dimension Police. This was one of my top 10 clans as well on my top 10 clans of the game right now. And the nice thing about the Dimension Police is, well, let me rephrase that. The nice thing and the sad thing about Dimension Police is not a whole lot of people play them right now. And I honestly don't know why. Because my friend Christian really likes the Dimension Police, and he plays them very well. And I think the Dimension deck is definitely a top 10 clan because of Enigma Storm. Because you can find ways to make Storm so powerful that you can eat up your opponent's hand, and then they'll have to take your rearguard attacks. So I think the Dimension Police deck is a very viable option as a cheap deck that maybe not a whole lot of people would think about. Number 8, Bermuda Triangle. Bermuda Triangle has its own pack. So it is easy to build a deck out of it relatively quickly. The only thing is the perfect guards for Bermuda are, of course, a little more expensive than, than most people would want to spend. I think the perfect guards are like $25 to $30 a piece, but that's relatively normal for perfect guards. The cheapest perfect guard I know is the Mega Colony deck, and that didn't make this because personally I think Mega Colony is really not that good of a clan. Sorry if you're a Mega Colony player to offend you, but I just have not seen a good consistent deck of it yet. Until I do, I will not change my opinion on it. But anyway, I do think Bermuda Triangle is a decent, cheap deck. And every deck on here that I mentioned, I tried to keep under about $150. I really didn't know how cheap to go, and I think, well, you could probably build some of these decks for even cheaper than that, So don't hold me to that $150 mark. If you could probably do it for cheaper. Another one is Angel Feather. I think Angel Feather is a very it's a very chainy clan because it works off the damage zone and being able to swap cards back and forth. So I do think the clan is good, but I also think it's a cheaper deck because because when players are playing Vanguard, you can almost guarantee, you're going to see your plethora of Royal Paladin, Gold Paladin, Shadow Paladin, Kagero, Oracle Think Tank. You're going to see plenty of those players, but Angel Feather is one of those clans that I think sneaks up on a lot of players and that I think is very viable of a top 10 cheap deck. So there's just another idea for you. Spike Brothers. And I know I said I only was doing 10, but I thought of another one, so you actually have 11 here. So number 10 is Spike Brother. Spike Brother is I showed you I have a deck profile of mine on my channel if you want to go check it out. I think Spike Brother is a very cheap deck, and I think it the way my Spike Brother deck sits right now, I think it is a very good deck. So I think, like I said in my Spike Brother deck profile, I wouldn't give it top tier 1, but I would give it tier 1.5. Good enough to be more than tier 2, but not good enough to be tier 1, and because unless the limit break goes well for you, it just doesn't work. But when the deck hits the way it's supposed to, you powerhouse your opponent and you win because you get 5 attacks off. So I think the Spike Brother deck is it's a very cheap deck, and I think it's arguably, maybe if I was going to rank these, it would be at least in the top 5 of the best top 10 cheap decks, or top 11, but you see my point. And then, like I told you, I said I was only going to do 10, but while I was doing this video, you may have saw me write something down. It just popped into the back of my mind that another clan that I think is cheaper and that is a good cheap deck is Grand Blue. And I have seen everything from okay Grand Blue players to excellent Grand Blue players to terrible Grand Blue players. And I had a Grand Blue deck, but I traded the whole deck to someone else for something, and honestly I do kind of miss it, but then again I really don't because I didn't play it that much. It was more kind of a deck I just played to screw around with. But anyway, there is 2 good Grand Blue players at my locals, my friend DeMarcus and my friend Severo, and both of them are by far the best Grand Blue players I've ever seen. I've seen a couple. I've researched every clan somewhat, and I've seen some other people's decks on YouTube, and I stand by it. I think their 2 builds are the best that I've seen, and I say that with respect to every other Grand Blue clan user. So, anyway, this has been top 10, and then it turned into top 11 cheap deck ideas for Cardfight Vanguard. I hope I was informative, because I know there's a lot of players that want to play the deck. I mean, play the game, but they just, like I've said, they just don't have a lot of money to spend, and they want to be able to enjoy the game without having to drop an ungodly amount of money, and I understand that. So I gave you some ideas to where that you could, you know, do so, and I'll reread these just one more time. Royal Paladin, Alfred and Galahad Ride Chain decks. Gold Paladin, decks that revolve around Garmor. Narukami, Thunderbreak Dragon. 4, Oracle Think Tank, Sakuya. 5, Nova Grappler, Gold Rutile, and also make sure to check out Azure Dragon and Ashura Kaiser decks, because I don't know how much those 2 cards are going for right now. Great Nature, because it's a cheaper clan to play. Dimension Police, it's a great clan, and it's a cheap clan, which doesn't make any sense. I think that clan should be worth a lot more money, and this clan is going to get more expensive once Set 8 hits in May. So if you are looking for a deck that is tier 1 right now, at least the way my friend Christian plays it, it's going to get really nasty in Set 8. Trust me on this. Pick up Dimension Police. It is a cheap clan now. It's going to get more expensive once Set 8 hits. So if you're looking for a deck that you can start to learn the rules of the game and get good at it, and then be really good by next month, pick up Dimension Police. Bermuda Triangle, because it has its own pack, and you can build a good deck in a short amount of time, because when you get the pack, it's called Banquet of Divas. The only cards in there are from the Bermuda Triangle clan, so you can get them relatively quickly. Angel Feather, Spike Brothers, and Grand Blue. So there's 11 clans there for you to look at for cheap decks to build around. And also, I didn't mention this part, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 clans on here have their own trial deck. And, you know, some people will say, well, yeah, but why didn't you mention Kagero? Well, Kagero, in my opinion, is not a cheap deck to play. It doesn't matter which direction you want to go, because, well, maybe if you wanted to build, like, what's that guy called? A left deck. Maybe that could be cheaper, so there's another idea. Or maybe or I don't know. I think the only cheap deck in Kagero to play would be a LF, but I think the clan overall is not a good idea to play if you're looking for something for cheap. That's why I gave you these. But anyway, this has been the video. I hope it was informative. I hope it gave you some ideas if you're looking for cheap decks. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it was informative. Thanks for watching. Comment, rate, subscribe, like the video. Tell me what you liked about it. Tell me what you didn't like about it. If I left out a clan that could be made relatively cheap, let me know. If you have anything you wish to add, let me know. I'm always looking for feedback. So thanks for watching, and see y'all later.